Hello, namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. Donald Trump has made an overture to India. His administration's first bilateral meeting was with India, not America's neighbors, not America's military allies, but with India. The foreign ministers of both countries, India and the US, met in Washington, D.C. We'll tell you what they discussed and what is the signal for New Delhi from Trump 2.0. Meanwhile, Europe is a worried lot. Traditionally, they are America's closest allies, but with Trump at the helm, they're scrambling for a new strategy and survival guide. We'll also tell you about Stargate, America's big bet on AI infrastructure. Day 2 of presidential decisions and reactions. What happened to Vivek Ramaswamy? Why is he leaving Doge? And what are the power dynamics within the first family? We'll introduce you to the Trump clan. Also tell you why China has decided to lift the ban on Hollywood films. How does the economy of clickbait work? From tiger pets to tears, it covers all of it. Why the Paris Olympic medals designed by Louis Vuitton are crumbling. And what a new global survey says about the preference of the workforce. People rate work-life balance over salary. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. A knife attack in Germany kills at least 2 people, including a child. The stabbings took place in a public park in a Bavarian town. A man from Afghanistan was arrested close to the crime scene. The police have ruled out terrorism. In recent months, Germany has witnessed a series of deadly stabbings. India gets ready for next generation warfare. The Defence Research and Development Organization, or DRDO, conducts the ground test of a scramjet combustor. This was done for the first time in the country. The test demonstrated the potential for its operational use in hypersonic missiles. In India, at least 11 people killed in a train accident in Maharashtra's Jalgaon district. Many more have been injured. The passengers had stepped down from their train after a rumor of fire on board. They were run over by another train coming from the opposite direction. The Bangladeshi government is forced to withdraw a controversial order. Its education ministry demanded that officers report students involved in anti-government activities. The order was condemned for challenging last year's student-led uprising, which toppled Sheikh Hasina's government. The Sudan faces a cash crunch after its army-aligned government issued new banknotes. The move was to undermine the paramilitary rivals. The currency shift comes 21 months into a war which has devastated the Northeast African country's economy. And is Brazilian star Neymar leaving his Saudi club Al Hilal? Sources say his financial demands are holding up an exit agreement. The footballer has had an injury-plagued stay in Saudi Arabia. Neymar has played for the club just 7 times since joining it in 2023. His reported salary is more than $100 million a year. Donald Trump's first day was all about shock and awe. He shook things up at home. On the second day, the focus shifted to diplomacy. Trump's Secretary of State was sworn in yesterday. His name is Marco Rubio. And his first official engagement, a Quad meeting. Rubio met with foreign ministers from India, Japan and Australia. It was a signal of Donald Trump's priorities. He clearly wants to focus on the Indo-Pacific. And within that, India tops the list, because after the Quad came the bilateral talks. Rubio's first meeting was with India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar. Now, this is a break from tradition. Incoming secretaries usually meet US allies, maybe a NATO partner country or a neighbor like Canada, or a treaty ally like Japan. India is none of that. Yet Rubio picked Jaishankar for his first meeting. Again, it's a signal of priorities. We saw that during the inauguration as well. Minister Jaishankar was seated in the front row, right in front of Donald Trump. The foreign ministers of Australia and Japan were seated a couple of rows back. But Jaishankar was at the front. He was sitting beside the president of Ecuador, a head of state. So clearly, the new US president is making an effort. He is reaching out to New Delhi, which brings us to the talks. What did Jaishankar and Rubio talk about? Jaishankar said that regional and global issues were discussed in the meeting. He also noted that Rubio is an advocate for closer ties with India. The US statement was more detailed. The statement about the meeting, it called for more cooperation in specific areas like emerging technologies, defense, energy, and the Indo-Pacific. Rubio also flagged an issue of concern with Jaishankar, that of irregular migration. A lot of Indians have been trying to illegally enter the US. Since 2020, around 170,000 have been caught. Indians are the largest group of illegal migrants outside the Western Hemisphere. So Trump wants to work on that and looks like India is open to it. Reports say New Delhi is planning to take back 18,000 illegal migrants. The first step is to identify and verify them. After that, they can be deported. And it's clearly a calculated move. Because India's priority is not illegal migration. India's priority is skilled legal migration, namely the H-1B visas. These are temporary work visas issued by the US. American tech companies use a lot of them. And Indians are the top beneficiaries. In 2023, Indians made up 75% of all H-1B visas. All visas that were issued by the US, 75% went to Indians. India wants to continue this practice and, if possible, maybe even expand it. But the Trump camp is split. His hardcore MAGA supporters do not like the H-1B visa. They say it replaces American workers, which is another way of saying that they are racist. But Trump himself seems open to it. He has repeatedly supported the H-1B visas. He says America needs skilled foreign workers. And yesterday, he reiterated that position.
I like both sides of the argument, but I also like very competent people coming into our country, even if that involves them training and helping other people that may not have the qualifications they do. And HB1, I know the program very well. I use the program. Maitre d's, wine, experts, even waiters, high quality waiters. You got to get the best people. Now, then you go into people like Larry, and he needs engineers, and Masa needs, and this gentleman needs engineers like nobody's ever needed engineers, right? So we have to have the quality people coming in.
He says, why just engineers? Bring in skilled waiters and wine experts too. Either way, the broader point is clear. Trump likes H-1B visas. But the problem does not end here. Trump has cancelled birthright citizenship in the US, meaning children born in the US will not automatically become US citizens. And this could affect visa holders. Say there's an Indian couple working in the United States, they're not American citizens, but they're waiting for their green cards. If they have a child in the US, that child won't be a US citizen. You can see why it's a problem. Right now, more than 1 million Indians are in line for green cards. Their children may be denied citizenship. Thankfully, this move has been challenged in court. 22 US states have filed a lawsuit. They want Trump's decision to be overturned. And there's a fair chance it will be. The good news is Trump is not shutting off his partners. He is engaging with them, and he clearly prioritizes his ties with India. The key is to work on the few irritants. Illegal migration, for example, is a low-stakes issue for India, but it plays well for Donald Trump at home. So New Delhi has made a wise choice by helping out. But other issues will be more challenging, like de-dollarization. Trump has warned countries against ditching the US dollar. He specifically threatened the BRICS nations. That too with 100% tariffs. Another issue is China. India is looking to reset relations with Beijing. It is also seeking Chinese investment, but Donald Trump may not like that. In fact, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is a China hawk. And that is why he was picked in the first place, to be aggressive on China. All of this makes the next few years very important. Trump only understands the language of give and take. And India will also have to speak it.
The largest AI infrastructure project by far in history, and it's all taking place right here in America.
Two days and too much action. Trump has carried the momentum of Inauguration Day with more announcements on day 2 in office. The new US president has unveiled a major deal, an infrastructure deal for artificial intelligence. It is a $500 billion pact called Stargate. Trump made the announcement himself, flanked by 3 big names from the world of tech: OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, SoftBank CEO Masayoshi Son, and Oracle Chairman Larry Ellison. These 3 are joining hands for Stargate. Donald Trump called it the largest AI infrastructure project in history, and there is quite a bit of history. Scientific research on AI began in the 1950s, so it's been around for longer than we imagine, and Donald Trump now wants to be its new champion.
It's my honor to welcome 3 of the world's leading technology CEOs to announce the largest AI infrastructure project by far in history, and it's all taking place right here in America.
Stargate is a private sector project. So why did President Trump announce it? Why is he putting his name to it, almost endorsing it while holding presidential office? Because it's personal too. Big tech used to be Trump's biggest rival. That equation has changed completely now. They're allies. The world saw it during his inauguration on Monday. As Trump took oath of office, he was surrounded by Silicon Valley heavyweights. That access is now translating into policy support. Big tech supports Donald Trump. In exchange, they get favorable policies and tons of institutional backing. That is how it's going to work. Plus, Trump gets to boast about big-ticket investments. He's been wooing the likes of Masayoshi Son well before he took office. In fact, you may remember this exchange.
I'm excited to go, and we were discussing, and President Trump said, Masa, double down is not enough. Maybe, go for more, right?
That's what I'm going to ask him right now. Would you make it $200 billion instead of He can actually, believe it or not, he can actually afford to do that. Would you do that?
He is a great negotiator.
Masayoshi Son is a major tech investor. He runs a Japanese company called SoftBank. SoftBank has invested in companies like Uber and WeWork. In India, it has put money in startups like Ola, Lenskart, and Oyo. And now Masayoshi Son wants to invest $100 billion in the United States of America. This will be across different projects, including Stargate. And as you heard him say, he's willing to go higher to invest even more.
Oh, thank you. That really helped.
That's good. That's great. I feel tall now. Thank you. Well, Mr. President, last month I came to celebrate your winning and promised that we will invest $100 billion. And you told me, oh, Masa, go for 200. Yeah. Now I came back with 500. Because this is the, as you said yesterday, this is the beginning of golden age.
That should make Donald Trump happy. Also, there's another dimension to it. A global race to control artificial intelligence is underway, and America wants to beat China in this race. And on this front, Donald Trump and Joe Biden are similar. Before leaving office, Biden tightened export curbs against China. He restricted the export of AI chips. As you know, chips are the basic building blocks of technology like AI. America is a leader in chip design. They don't want China to access their chips, hence the restrictions. Biden introduced them. Trump is doubling down on them. He wants America to have a monopoly in AI.
What we want to do is we want to keep it in this country. China is a competitor and others are competitors. We want it to be in this country, and we're making it available. I'm going to help a lot through emergency declarations because we have an emergency. We have to get this stuff built.
What stuff is Trump referring to? He's talking about building massive data centers, the kind that power AI apps like ChatGPT, and this is where Stargate comes in. This alliance is already building 10 data centers in Texas. With the new investment, Stargate will be able to build more such facilities. They'll remain in Texas for now, but over time, the project will expand to other American states. These data centers are critical for AI applications. They generate massive computing power. They function like the brain of AI apps. So if the US controls this brain, this infrastructure of AI, it can wield enormous influence on new technologies. The goal is to keep this infrastructure in America. In fact, Trump is trying to do something similar with TikTok. Yesterday, during the press conference, he gave an offer to the Oracle CEO. Trump said they can buy TikTok.
It's worthless if it doesn't get a permit. It's not like, oh, you can take the US. The whole thing is worthless. With a permit, it's worth like $1 trillion. So what I'm thinking about saying to somebody is buy it and give half to the United States of America, half, and we'll give you the permit. Sounds reasonable. What do you think?
Sounds like a good deal to me, Mr. President.
Yeah, he can afford it too.
Trump even suggested that Elon Musk should buy TikTok. Now, it's not clear if Musk is interested, but Trump's goal is clear. He wants TikTok in American hands. This is the latest battleground in the great power rivalry. You see, during the Cold War, the US and the Soviet Union sparked a global arms race. It even escalated to a nuclear standoff, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Now, in the 21st century, world powers are competing for different tools of influence. Apps, computer technology, artificial intelligence, these are the new realms of strategic competition. Donald Trump's push for AI supremacy will only intensify this battle. Now let's look at the other things that happened yesterday. Trump is keen to fulfill his key pledge, tackling immigration. The mass deportations have not started yet, but the president is laying the groundwork. He just gave more powers to US immigration authorities. They're now allowed to raid quote-unquote sensitive locations, places like schools, hospitals, and churches. They can raid them. Authorities can enter these places to pick up illegal immigrants and then expedite their deportation. This move even drew a reaction from the church, from a bishop in Washington.
They may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President.
And what was Trump's response? Well, he put up a post calling the bishop a radical left hardline Trump hater, and then adding that the service was quote-unquote very boring. Clearly, Trump is not going to allow anything to stop him. He has a plan, and at most, it will be delayed, not denied. Take tariffs, for example. Trump had promised to impose new tariffs on day one, 25% on goods from Canada and Mexico and up to 60% on Chinese goods. These new tariffs were not imposed on day one, but they are very much in the pipeline.
We're thinking in terms of 25% on Mexico and Canada because they're allowing vast numbers of people. Canada's a very bad abuser also. Vast numbers of people to come in and fentanyl to come in.
When do you think you would enact those?
I think February 1st.
Are you planning on giving notice of that?
I think we'll do it February 1st.
25% on both, sir.
Sir,
On each.
On each.
Trump has issued the tariff notice, and Canada and Mexico have both reacted.
It
is important always to keep a cool head and refer to the decrees signed beyond the speech itself.
Mexico's president downplayed the threat. She asked people to focus on the actual decrees, the ones that Trump has signed, and not on his speech. She wants to avoid confrontation and try and talk things over. Meanwhile, her Canadian counterpart also spoke up. Outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said, and I'm quoting, If there are unfair tariffs, we will respond robustly and we will be there to support Canadians and protect our interests. Yes, that was Trudeau showing some spine. Easy to do when you're already on your way out. Will Trump admire this newfound backbone, or will he double down on his tariff threat? We'll find out on the 1st of February. And it won't just be Canada and Mexico in the crosshairs. February 1st may also usher in tariffs on China.
We're thinking about that too. We're talking about a tariff of 10% on China based on the fact that they're sending fentanyl to Mexico and Canada.
How soon? How soon on those tariffs?
Probably February 1st is the date we're looking at.
Trump is not thinking about 60% yet, but he's looking to levy 10% tariffs on Chinese goods, again from the 1st of February, and China reacted today.
On this issue, we have repeatedly expressed China's position. We always believe that there are no winners in trade wars and tariff wars. China has always firmly safeguarded its national interests.
Beijing wants to avoid a trade war, but it says it is ready for a fight too. Let's see how that goes in the days to come. And all of this shows that Trump's tariff plan is very much underway. He hasn't changed his mind or given up on this day one priority. There is only one day one promise that seems to be going nowhere. Ending the war in Ukraine, no luck there. Russia and Ukraine are still at it. They're both trying to make gains, both trying to capture more territory before the final buzzer. And that could be close because Trump just issued a warning.
You've called for a ceasefire in Ukraine. If Vladimir Putin doesn't come to the table to negotiate with you, will you put additional sanctions on Russia?
Sounds likely.
Trump says he's already talking to Zelensky. He's readying himself for talks with Vladimir Putin soon, and new sanctions on Russia are very much on the table. They will be part of Trump's arsenal. Let's see if he resorts to using them. So far, Donald Trump's agenda seems to be on track. He has made headway on a lot of his promises, and he's poised to tackle the Russia-Ukraine headache soon as well. The next few weeks promise to be interesting. The Trump camp is basking in glory. His son Barron is taking center stage. Elon Musk is doing Nazi salutes. But one person is conspicuously absent from the limelight, and that is Vivek Ramaswamy. He attended all the Inauguration Day events, but his presence was limited, not like other Trump allies and advisors. So what happened here? Apparently, there's been a breakup. Vivek Ramaswamy has left the DOGE department. DOGE stands for Department of Government Efficiency. It was announced by Trump in November. Its job is to downsize the US government, to cut the bulk and to boost efficiency. Trump and Ramaswamy were supposed to head DOGE together. But Ramaswamy is out. Why? Reports say he was booted out by Elon Musk, and that Ramaswamy could now return to his state of Ohio. Apparently, he plans to run for governor there. But how did things unravel so fast? Well, Vivek Ramaswamy never fit the classic Republican mold. He is not white, he is not Christian, and he is not experienced. Vivek Ramaswamy is just 38 years old. He is a newbie in Republican politics. Then how did he shoot to fame? Thanks to his loyalty to Donald Trump. Ramaswamy modeled his politics on the US president, the same brash attitude, the same disruptive policies, and the same corporate background. The difference is that Trump made it work, but Ramaswamy could not. A lot of Republicans did not like his brash attitude. We saw that late last year. Ramaswamy triggered a debate on H-1B visas. He said American culture venerated mediocrity over excellence. Apparently, that was the last straw. Let me quote what an insider said. Republicans wanted him out before the tweet, but kicked him to the curb when that came out. Reports say Vivek Ramaswamy had a plan charted out. He wanted to work at Doge for a while, maybe get some achievements under his belt, and after that he wanted to run for governor. But Elon Musk had other ideas. He did not think that Ramaswamy could run Doge and campaign for governor. So the solution? To let him go. It also tells you how powerful Elon Musk has become. It tells you where Ramaswamy stands, largely isolated. This is the second time Republicans have targeted him. The first was during a Senate bid. When J.D. Vance became vice president, it opened up a vacancy. Vance was a senator from Ohio, so someone needed to fill that seat. And reports say Vivek Ramaswamy mounted a campaign for it. He wanted to become a senator, but he was denied. Now he wants to run for governor. It should be interesting. Let's see if Donald Trump endorses him or not. But for the moment, let's take a step back because there is a larger story at play here. A story of two parts. The first is Trump's revolving door of advisors. In his first term, Trump had 4 White House chiefs of staff. 4 in 4 years. 12 of his cabinet appointees were either fired or resigned. And the reason is simple. Trump requires unquestioned loyalty. If you can't give him that, he will find someone else who will. Should we expect the same again? Well, this time, Trump has packed his cabinet with loyalists. The idea is to prevent a repeat of the first term. Let's see if it helps. That's the first part of it. The second part is about Republican internal dynamics. Trump, Ramaswamy, and Musk are all very similar, rich, disruptive outsiders. At first, the party rejected Donald Trump too, but his immense popularity forced them to accept him. However, not everyone can be Donald Trump. We're talking about a generational politician, whether in a good way or bad, which is why Republican elders are pushing back. They're worried about tech bros and outsiders hijacking their party's agenda. The H-1B debate was a classic example of that, and it's a challenge that Trump must confront. He has created a strange coalition of conservatives, tech bros, and outsiders. So splits were bound to emerge. It's only a question of how and when it explodes. It's a new chapter for the Trumps. They're back in the White House, but this time the stage is set for a very different show. New breakout stars are stepping into the spotlight, like Trump's towering son Barron and his Gen Z granddaughter Kai, who's making waves online. Meanwhile, familiar faces are stepping back, like daughter Ivanka Trump and her husband Jared Kushner. They're choosing family life over politics. And then there's Trump's wife, Melania, the rebranded First Lady who's charting her own path. How will this family shape the next 4 years in Washington? Our next report tells you all about America's new political dynasty.
The gilded doors of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue swing open once more, welcoming back Donald J. Trump. He's returning as the 47th President of the United States.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect of the United States, the Honorable Donald John Trump.
But this time, the drama isn't just in the West Wing, it's a family affair. New faces emerge under the spotlight while others step aside. So let's meet America's first family, the Trumps. The first is Melania Trump, the new First Lady of the United States. Melania was famously private during her husband's first term, but this time she has returned with a vengeance, or at least a rebrand. She's promoting her own memoir. She's launched her own meme coin, and she's the subject of an upcoming documentary. This time around, Melania is truly stepping into her own spotlight. But don't expect her to stay at the White House full time. She'll be splitting her time between Washington, New York, where her son is in school, and Mar-a-Lago. Which brings us to Trump's 5 children. This time, one of them is in focus. Barron Trump, the son of Trump's third wife, Melania. He was 10 during his father's first inauguration. Even then, he was as tall as Trump. Barron moved into the White House as a shy 5th grader. He was the first boy to live there since John F. Kennedy Jr. in 1961. This time, at 6 feet 7 inches, he's towering over the room. Trump credits him for getting the Gen Z vote. He emerged as an important influence on his father's campaign.
I have a very tall son named Barron. Has anyone ever heard of him? Thank you. He knew the youth vote. You know, we won the youth vote by 36 points. And he was saying, Dad, you got to go out and do this one and that one. And we did a lot of them.
However, Barron won't be at the White House this time. He's a freshman at New York University, so he will spend most of his time there. The other significant figure is Donald Trump Jr., Trump's oldest son. He didn't serve in an official capacity during the first term, but this time he's front and center. He was a crucial part of his father's campaign. He reportedly helped his friend J.D. Vance secure the VP nomination, and chances are he plays a bigger role in the days to come. There's also Eric Trump and Tiffany Trump. They were present at both inaugurations, but both of them keep a low profile, supporting from the sidelines. Which brings us to Trump's favorite child, Ivanka Trump. She and her husband Jared Kushner were the face of the first Trump administration. They were both advisors to the president, but this time they were mostly absent. They were present at the inauguration, but the golden couple is staying out of politics, living in Miami, and focusing on family instead. Now Trump has 10 grandchildren, but there's one making the news this time. Kai Madison Trump, the daughter of Donald Trump Jr. At just 17, Kai is already shaping up to be the family's breakout star. She's the family's TikTok ambassador, bringing sass, golf tutorials, and unexpected charm to the campaign trail. Kai is unafraid to roast her grandfather in public while showing the behind-the-scenes action. As the Trump family descends once more on Washington, there will be more glimpses into America's new political dynasty, where the family business is never just politics, it's entertainment. But if there's one thing the Trumps have proven, it's that spectacle sells, and at the White House, the show is just getting started.
If you make one bad bet, you can count yourself unlucky. If you make 2 bad bets, perhaps very unlucky. But 3? Then it's time to consider other possibilities. Maybe it's not luck or circumstance. Maybe you've been foolish, which frankly sums up the case of Europe today. They outsourced virtually everything to other countries. Defense and foreign policy to the United States of America, energy supplies to Russia, and factory production to China. And the result is this: Europe is worried and nervous, unable to protect their own national interests. Just look at Ukraine. European leaders want Kiev to join their union, the EU. Kiev also wants to join the EU and the NATO, but Russia won't let them. And what is Europe doing about it? They're letting America take the lead. US military aid to Ukraine is $66 billion. EU military aid to Ukraine is $48 billion. Imagine that. The European Union has 27 countries. So 27 countries together are spending just 70% of what the US is spending alone. The result? They are at the mercy of Donald Trump. He has promised to end the war in Ukraine. His allies have also called for cutting off military aid. If that happens, Ukraine may lose. And the EU will have to watch helplessly from the sidelines. Even Zelensky knows this. He wants Europe to have its own security policy, maybe even its own Iron Dome.
We need a united European security and defense policy, and all European countries must be willing to spend as much on security as it truly needed, not just as much as they have gotten used to during years of neglect. Europe needs its own version of the Iron Dome, something that can deal with any kind of threat. We can't rely on goodwill from a few capitals when it comes to Europe's security.
I know Zelensky has a vested interest here, but he's got a point. Every player, including the European Union, should have its own security policy. But that won't happen overnight. The EU has long neglected its military capabilities. It depended on the United States for protection. In the short term, that is unlikely to change, which is why European leaders are wary of taking on Trump. Just look at Germany's Olaf Scholz. He is being humiliated by Trump's allies. Elon Musk called him Auf Spitz. His response? You can't be triggered by every tweet.
In a world that is constantly on the verge of a nervous breakdown in the mirror of social media, cool heads are needed. Not every press conference in Washington, not every tweet should send us into tizzy, existential debates.
This isn't maturity, though, it is helplessness. The same with energy supplies. Europe depended on Russia for gas shipments. Before the war, Moscow made up 40% of all EU imports. It has since come down to 8%. We're talking about a big shock here. The pivot from Russian gas hurt European countries. Inflation skyrocketed. Many incumbents lost power in elections. But even today, Russian gas is flowing into Europe. Yes, the quantity is less, but the EU is still sending billions of dollars to Russia, to their enemy. And finally, you have manufacturing and factory work. A lot of countries are trying to de-risk from China, but the EU is doing the opposite. Look at data from 2017 to 2023. During this time, the United States reduced imports from China. China's share was almost 22% in 2017. It fell to 13% by 2023. Same with Japan. China's share fell from more than 29% to 27%. But the European Union? It rose from 22 to 25%. So Europe is unable to shake its dependence on China, whether it's for EVs or phones or machines. Simply put, Europe is totally reliant on other players for security, for consumer goods, and for energy. In peacetime, this is not an issue. Europe thought wars were limited to West Asia or Africa. They did not imagine violence at their doorstep. So when the fighting began, they were helpless. A few leaders did warn about this. Like French President Emmanuel Macron, he had demanded a European army and security policy. Back then, it was seen as extra. But today, it is seen as necessary. Macron repeated those demands today. He hosted German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in Paris. He said Europe's security is now up to Europeans.
After the inauguration of a new administration in the United States, it is more than ever up to Europeans, and so to our two countries, to play their role of consolidating a united, strong, and sovereign Europe. Yes, Europe has to not only spend more for defense, but it also has to develop its own industrial foundation, its own capabilities, its own industry.
Poland is also of the same opinion. Their Prime Minister says Europe must arm to survive.
If Europe is to survive, it must be armed. It is not our choice. I am not a militarist. Poland is the place on earth where no one wants any repetition of any war. We suffer the most in Europe during this terrible war. Maybe that is why we understand so well that in order to avoid this tragic repetition of history, we must all be strong, armed, determined.
Maybe this will jolt Europe into action, or maybe it's too late for them. Either way, it's a reality check for other countries too, especially those in the Indo-Pacific. A lot of them appear tempted to do the same, to outsource security to America or to China. But remember, today's realities will be different from tomorrow's. A country may support you today, but it may pull that support tomorrow. The only one you can count on is yourself. Our next story is about Hollywood. Years ago, China was a gold mine for its movies. But then came the first Trump administration. Ties between Beijing and Washington soured, and Hollywood movies were the collateral damage. China's censors cracked down on them. Now Donald Trump is back in power, but this time President Xi Jinping wants to do things differently. So he is welcoming Hollywood movies back. He's screening them in record numbers and offering subsidies on movie tickets. It's all a little out of character. So what's behind this pivot? And is it limited to Hollywood? Here's a report.
Consumer gloom is still sweeping across China. People are scaling back on travel, drinking out, buying clothes and jewelry. Consumption growth is far below pre-pandemic levels, and this is bad news for China, whose economy is not in good shape and hasn't been for a while. So how is President Xi Jinping coping? Well, he wants to send people to the movies. Beijing is pulling out all the stops and offering subsidies on movie tickets, renovating cinemas, and slowly opening its lucrative market to foreign films. You see, China is the world's second biggest box office market after the United States. Long ago, it was a gold mine for American releases, but Xi's censors have been cracking down on them, or for that matter, on anything that he claims is too Western or immoral. Yet last year, they aired 93 imported films. This is the most since 2019, and most of them were from Hollywood, 42 of them. So as China stares at the possibility of another trade war with the United States, thanks to Donald Trump's return to the White House, it's opening the door to Hollywood and welcoming movies like Joker. But that's not all. Many foreign films gaining success in China are from countries that Beijing is trying to mend ties with, like India and Japan. The Tamil film Maharaja is a particular hit in China. It's the highest grossing Indian movie there in years, earning more than $10 million. Then there's the Japanese animated film The Boy and the Heron. It has reeled in $108 million. Even though China's box office haul has taken a plunge by nearly a quarter, foreign films are witnessing their best tally in the country and hold 21% of the market. And this is good news for China, because when people want to watch movies, they go to malls. And when they go to malls, they shop a little here and eat a little there. So tapping into the movie market has the potential to unleash domestic demand and teach China an important lesson in boosting ties with countries while picking fewer unnecessary fights. Because this isn't just about movies, China has been cracking down on foreign cultural influence, and this includes music. But now, as Xi tries to reverse his country's economic fate, his government is pinning its hope on music shows and scrambling to host international stars like British singer Ed Sheeran, who has announced plans to perform next month. And the walking GDP, Taylor Swift, whose Eras global tour was the first to earn over $1 billion in revenue. Reportedly, Shanghai has held preliminary talks with the US pop star, hoping that she brings her economic impact to China. You see, geopolitics can shape cultural priorities, especially for Beijing, where all kinds of cultural imports have been at the mercy of censors. Like in 2020, when China approved no Indian movies for 2 years after clashes between troops at the border. Or in 2016, when Beijing tightened its chokehold on Hollywood after strained ties during the first Trump administration. But geopolitics alone is not a factor. So is economics. And this is a lesson that China is still learning. So grab your popcorn, take your seats, and get ready to scream, "It's the economy, stupid."
Pets. Who doesn't love them? There's nothing quite like the joy of returning home to a furry friend. But in Pakistan, owning pets is not just about companionship, it is a high-stakes game. Forget cuddly dogs or cute cats. Here it's all about the big cats. Owning a pet lion, it's no big deal in Islamabad. The wealthy already have their own private zoos. But now a new breed of owners has emerged. Social media influencers. They're housing these majestic big cats because raising them has become the latest trend. The spectacle is irresistible. A seemingly ordinary person tending to tigers and lions, interacting with them daily. Yet behind the scenes, the ethics are murky. The animals are kept in poor conditions, their lives shortened by improper care. But for the influencer, the payoff is enormous. Millions of views, a surge in followers, and even sponsorship deals. But here is the catch. All of this is a facade, a dangerous game fueled by likes and views, because this is not about the love for animals. It is about attention. It is clickbait in its purest form, something that attracts immediate attention. That's what clickbait is, a hook or a bait that makes you click on a post online. The influencers know that it works. Chances are the audience does too. And clickbait is evolving. When it's not exotic animals, it is personal tragedies, tear-streaked faces, tales of heartbreak, illness, or financial ruin. It's all about telling a sad story to evoke a strong emotion. It's what the internet calls sad bait. Apparently, it works too. The sadder the story, the more it sells, and it creates a loop. Sad stories lead to maximum engagement. More engagement means more views and more ad revenue. Algorithms push your video, and in the end, you have a viral product. I'll give you an example from Facebook. Do you know what dominated Facebook feeds in 2024? AI-generated images of wounded veterans and impoverished children. These were the biggest hits. These were the posts which got the maximum interactions. Which brings us to the question, why does this stuff work? And the answer lies with the way the human brain works. Human beings are naturally curious. Clickbait plays on their FOMO, on their fear of missing out. Imagine you see a post with a dramatic image, like someone crying, or a video with a question. There is a very good chance that you will click, because the human brain is wired to seek resolution, to figure out how it ends. And clickbait exploits that ruthlessly, which makes it a billion-dollar industry. In 2022, advertisers spent $115 million on clickbait sites. Clickbait posts turn content creators into stars, and they earn big money. In 2023, a study was conducted. It showed how much top-tier influencers charge for a single Instagram post. It can be as high as $250,000. So viral posts pay a lot. And this clickbait culture has reshaped industries, fashion, fitness, even the media. Clickbait is now the name of the game. Brands are building entire campaigns around viral trends. Influencers want to do more of the absurd. Headlines have to be jarring, because at the heart of it is a simple formula: attention equals revenue. And this is where it gets tricky. In this chase for views, likes, and shares, authenticity begins to erode. The lines between real stories and exaggerated spectacle blurs. You can blame the influencers and the content creators for this, but the audience too is part of this cycle. Every time we click, share, or comment, we feed the beast. We push the content that thrives on manipulation and deception. And some platforms are waking up to this, like YouTube. It is cracking down on clickbait in India with new rules. Videos with misleading thumbnails will be removed, they say. So the next time you see an exotic animal or a tear-streaked face on your screen, do ask yourself this question before clicking. Is this content designed to engage or manipulate? Is this story being told to inform or to exploit? The answer may not always be clear, but one thing is for certain: the power of your click is greater than you imagine. Our next story is about the 2024 Paris Olympics. The Olympics are the pinnacle of athletic excellence. They bring together the world's best. So you would think the athletes deserve the best as well, especially the winners. They deserve the finest laurels and glorious medals, medals that will last forever. Sadly for the Paris Olympians, their medals do not fit the bill. They are already crumbling. More than 100 athletes have asked for replacements for their rust-covered, disintegrating medals. So who's to blame for the poor quality of the awards? Well, fingers are being pointed at one of the biggest luxury companies in the world, the medals designer, Louis Vuitton's parent company, LVMH. Here's our report.
You may have heard of LVMH, the French luxury goods giant. The letters stand for Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, leading luxury brands in their own right. Then you have Tiffany, Bulgari, Christian Dior, and dozens of others. All these brands come under the LVMH umbrella. The group was synonymous with high-end luxury and exceptional quality. We say was synonymous because a recent mishap has dented that reputation and made LVMH a laughingstock, at least in its native France. The mishap in question is pretty glaring. It involves the ultimate symbol of world-beating glory, the medals from last year's Paris Olympics. These are the medals in question. Very chic, very suave. LVMH was quite excited about these medals and quick to highlight its role in their design. This is a page on the LVMH website where they unveiled the medals. LVMH took the credit for unveiling them. Not the International Olympic Committee, not French President Emmanuel Macron, LVMH. The brand sought to integrate itself with the Olympics. It was the largest corporate sponsor. LVMH branding was everywhere, and this extended to the medals. A jewelry brand under LVMH designed the medals. It was the first time a jeweler was given the honor, apparently. And they were quite proud of it. The medals had scraps from the Eiffel Tower, from the renovation work. The Eiffel Tower piece and the medal's ray design symbolize something very artistic. But apparently, what they don't symbolize is sturdiness. Because look at some of the medals now. Olympians have taken to social media to display their rusting medals. Over 100 athletes have lodged complaints with the International Olympic Committee. They're all asking for replacements. How did this happen? How did the world's premier luxury house get things so wrong? Well, LVMH is pointing the finger at Monnaie de Paris. It's a French mint. This mint was responsible for actually making the medals, for executing the LVMH design. The mint has also taken responsibility for the defects. They say it was a problem with the varnish, the coating used to prevent rusting. Apparently, the mint was forced to change the varnish formula at the last minute because of European Union regulations banning a toxic chemical. Their new varnish clearly didn't work well, and so now we have dozens of rusty, crumbling Olympic medals. LVMH has been relatively quiet during this whole fiasco, refusing to take blame for their partner's shortcomings. While unveiling the medals, the LVMH website didn't give any credit to the partner. It hogged all the plaudits. But when it comes to blame, suddenly it's all the mint's fault. That's quite the way to protect brand reputation. Let's see if LVMH customers agree.
Before we begin our last story tonight, let me ask you this. What is your biggest priority at work? Is it the paycheck? Is it career growth? Or maybe a healthy work environment? It could be anything. We ask because recently a global survey was held. It was conducted by the world's largest employment agency. It asked people what they prioritize at work, what motivates them at their current workplace, and how do they choose the right job. This survey has been conducted for more than 2 decades now, but this year's findings may surprise you. For the first time, this is the top motivator for people: work-life balance. In recent years, it has soared in importance, but this year it outranks pay. Work-life balance has replaced salary as the leading motivator. Look at the data. 83% workers say that work-life balance is the most important to them, and this is compared to 82% workers who choose pay over all else. Now, the margin is not huge, but the data shows a shift in mindset. That yes, compensation is still very, very important, but people have other expectations as well. They increasingly want work to be part of their life and not their whole life. and they're willing to fight for it. Almost half have asked for better conditions at work. They have opted for flexible work, and almost a third have quit their job when their expectations were not met. Now, such demands are more common among the young, but not limited to them. According to the survey, this is a side effect of the pandemic. It came years ago, but it brought along a corporate revolution of sorts, which has more or less stuck around. Now there is a new baseline in the world of work. Global talent is looking beyond the paycheck, seeking flexible hours, wanting to spend more time with family, prioritizing health and hobbies. And this is the new age of work, or what many call the age of anti-ambition. With this shift, critics are slamming the loss of productivity, executives are railing against remote work, bigwigs are calling for 70, 80, 90-hour work weeks. And they have a point too. If you want the corner office, you have to go above and beyond. Your job description cannot be the finish line. You have to put in the work. And sometimes, or often, your work has to be the center of your life. But one thing is worth keeping in mind. Careers are not linear graphs. People rev up or rev down at various points in their life, and work-life balance is all about that. It is not about shirking responsibility or pulling a Joe Biden and spending much of your time on vacation. It is about creating reasonable boundaries at work and at home. Study after study proves that this has benefits. It is good for us and for companies. It is linked to a healthy lifestyle, and this does not mean less profit or loss of productivity at work. In fact, there is a boost, because ultimately, it is not the number of hours, but the quality of work that really matters. So workers are on the right track. They're trying to strike that balance. And if you want to jump on the bandwagon, experts have a thought experiment for you. This is a two-step formula. The first step: grab a pen and paper and jot down the things that you value, like career progression or health, parenting, friendship, whatever it is that you want. How important is each of these to you? Rate them out of 10. Then rate them again. This time, score yourself on each of these. The numbers show what matters to you and what you need to work on. So you will know where the balance is off. That is the first step. Now the second step. Think about the cost of this imbalance, like burnout or poor health or debt. This is the price that you pay. Sometimes circumstances are to blame for it. Not everyone can afford a perfect balance, but some things must be in your control. Figure out what they are, then push it where it moves. So get back to the drawing board, this time to redraw the line between your work life and your life life. Trump and Sharpies. It's a love story for the ages. And on his inauguration day, Trump took a Sharpie to democracy, signing one executive order after another. For Donald Trump, the Sharpie's thick, bold lines mirrored his approach to governance: direct, unapologetic, and impossible to ignore. Need a border wall prototype sketched? Use a Sharpie. Want to cross out climate change in a policy draft? Take a Sharpie. Drafting a love note to Kim Jong-un? You guessed it, write with a Sharpie. Trump's love affair with Sharpies did not just leave an indelible mark on policy, it redefined the internet. Memes, parodies, even Sharpie Gate. His presidency is a masterclass in permanent ink. Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Turkish President Erdogan attends the funeral for victims of the devastating hotel fire. Hamas guard their destroyed police headquarters in Gaza City, and Greenpeace activists symbolically confiscate private jets at the Davos airport. Finally, we are taking you back in history. On this day in 1973, the US Supreme Court legalized abortion in the historic Roe versus Wade decision. The case began with a Texas waitress who wanted an abortion. The court struck down state bans declaring a nationwide constitutional right to abortion. The landmark Roe versus Wade verdict was overturned in 2022. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We will see you tomorrow.
Ayeti kerimeyi biz Allah için varız ve Allah'a dönücüleriz derler. Allahu Ekber. Sadık Gültekin için. Allah için salata. Resulullah için salata. Gültekin'i götürüyoruz. Şu
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on Firstpost.